Buttigieg and Klobuchar doing right now, Daniel?
Okay, so let's get into it.
Are they surging?
Is it a cakewalk for
amidst
them?
their non-victories in the last
it's
2
big.
primaries?
I mean,
what's going on with the cakewalk?
It's amazing. I mean, did you hear? There were these 2 presidential candidates in America who almost won, almost got first place in 2 different arenas, and they are the front runners because that's how it works here in America on mainstream media. That's what
the
Chuck
winner
Todd,
doesn't actually claim victory.
Strong fourth place is first place.
Yes, exactly. No, it's a strong third is more important than a strong first. And, like, I guess to Paul's point again, it's anyone but Bernie. So if Bernie got first, what's first place? I don't know what first place is. It's second place.
Did you see how great Buttigieg is doing in second?
Yeah, it's a
second
strong
place is first
second,
place. Yeah,
solid
strong
second.
Yep.
It's all about almost winning. That's
Correction.
what we
2 is first, 3 is second, 4 is third, number 1 is fourth.
No, number 1 is fifth.
Number 1 is fifth.
Yeah,
Can't leave
And
Biden
5 is
out.
four,
It's
yeah.
very important.
And then
It's
5
very
is
important
4.
distinction.
Right.
It's super important. Yeah.
There we go.
I mean,
Arithmetic in the United States.
Okay, we had to make sure we laid that out for you guys because if you didn't understand that, none of what I'm about to report will make any sense unless we put in those terms because that's really how it needs to be talked about. So
Mathematics and arithmetic.
let's do this.
Yep.
So we talked a little bit about this earlier with already talking about Pete when we were talking about Bloomberg a little bit earlier, but now we're going to basically shift over to really talking about Buttigieg and Klobuchar and talk about that path which I was alluding to as we were talking to about how Buttigieg and it's crazy. It's like they were like, oh, just jump chairs. It's like, oh, this person's. We talked about this so much. It just feels like almost like we're in a circular story that it's like, the media wants Klobuchar. Now they want Buttigieg. Now it's Bloomberg. Now it's Biden. Now it's. Anyway, let me just get into this. I've been pontificating enough. So as we go into the next couple states, which would be Nevada and South Carolina, well, as I mentioned before, Buttigieg and Klobuchar do really, really, really bad with minority groups. And again, specifically, Buttigieg has about 4 percentage points of support with African Americans, and Klobuchar has 0. So she has maybe one of her black friends, I guess, that's voting for. I'm not really sure how that breaks down besides 0, but 0 is 0. But as we've just talked about earlier, 0 is now second place. Remember that. So the 2 Midwestern moderates are scoring up against better organized candidates like Bernie Sanders and better known ones like, what do you mean in better known ones? Like everyone, God, I don't like these articles. Like Joe Biden and free spending billionaire Tom Steyer. Because as you know, Biden and Tom Steyer are now also first and second place, and no one knows who Bernie is, so he's in third place, obviously. In Nevada,
did they just say Tom Steyer was better known than Bernie Sanders?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what they said. That's exactly what
insane.
they said. That's exactly what they said.
Well, in opposite world, it makes perfect sense.
Well, yeah, that's why we introduced this earlier. First is third, third is fifth.
But you could make an argument that Biden has more name recognition than Sanders. There's an argument for that. He was VP, and they sort of shoved them together in the same sentence there. Yeah. They were like Sanders, or who might have more
better known people like Joe Biden and free spending billionaire Tom Steyer.
So why did Steyer get the bump into being better known? Because you put him in a sentence next to Joe Biden's name? That's not how that works.
Paul, remember, we talked about this. First is third, third is first, second is first. That's how this works. We got to make sure we get you on track with this.
He's
very important.
That's very important. Steyer is.
So then going back to the Buttigieg and Klobuchar both have records contain flaws that black and brown voters might find unacceptable, like throwing staplers or just everything about how Pete Buttigieg ran.
How about eating a salad with a comb?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't think anyone. I don't think that's a specific demographic. I think that's just a general concept. Let's keep going. So Megan Jones, and this is interesting. We're at the point where you're about to see. Megan Jones, a Nevada-based Democratic consultant who advised Kamala Harris' presidential campaign, said, I quote, "I think Nevada could be a rude awakening for some of the supposed frontrunners." Wow. It's so weird to get a little bit of authenticity in a statement out of someone like a Klobuchar staffer, so I'll take it when I get it. And in South Carolina, quote, "The challenges for both of them moving forward are obvious," say Andrean Shropshire, executive director of Black PAC. Their numbers with Black. Can you? Okay, you guys know I'm terrible with these names. How would you say this? How would you say this?
I couldn't help.
Shropshire.
Okay, well, I guess that's how it is. I'm
The
sorry if I'm.
Shropshire?
I'm sorry if I'm
I
butchering
didn't
your
see it.
butchering your name, but as someone who has a name that's
SHROP.
always
I just thought it was
butchered-
too funny.
SHROP and then Shire.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, I'm going to say again, just
Shropshire.
for the record, as someone whose name has only been said correctly when read 4 times in my life, I can butcher people's name and it doesn't matter. So anyway, we continue. They are not registering. Buttigieg and Klobuchar's campaigns are now racing to lay out political track, which again, you had to lay out like 18 months ago. You can't just Johnny-come-lately a railroad into existence in front of them. Though one Democratic strategist warned that many black voters grow more skeptical of new appeals the closer they get to Election Day, which kind of makes sense. Nationally, Buttigieg got 4% and Klobuchar got 0, which I mentioned earlier, which is a blow. Time out again. 0 and 4 is low. That means they're in first and second place. And Bernie, who has high double digits, is in last place. But Bloomberg, who is currently right now polling 3% higher in black vote, he's actually in 0th place, which is better than first place, but not as bad as being in second place, which is in 5th place. Remember, that's how it works. Remember, guys? Okay, let's keep
Hold on,
going.
wait, Daniel, let's keep
Yeah.
it simple. If your name is Bernie Sanders, you're last place.
But no, but that you can't use that. That's not a fair way to do it. The
Oh, yeah?
DNC and then mainstream media would never be unfair to Bernie Sanders. So there's the
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Idea
2016
that,
never
the idea
happened.
that Bernie just because Bernie Sanders is leading means he's in last place. That's ridiculous.
See,
We
you
can't-
know what would really
Yeah.
sell your point though
Yeah.
is if we had a touchscreen board that you could draw on and you could wave your arms around like Steve Kornacki, and then,
Yeah.
then everyone would be like, "Oh, I get it
Yeah.
now,"
Yeah.
because 5th is first and
Yeah.
food.
No,
Wait,
I'm sure everyone in chat is not confused at all by this. Anyway, let's keep going. So it's going to be a real uphill battle for both of them because communities of color are used to white politicians coming at the end and asking for their votes, which is why I mentioned earlier why it's really important to set this groundwork down way ahead of time, which Bernie has done and Biden has done, which is why I was really happy that Pete and Klobuchar have been getting all these votes because they've just stolen all of Biden's thunder and fundraising and momentum at just the time where it would have come in handy. Because now again he's not even participating in Nevada. He's literally like, I'm not going to do Nevada. So we walk into South Carolina. What is going to be left of Biden? Thanks to Biden. Thanks to Buttigieg. So many
Boom.
B's.
you've
Got it.
confused yourself.
Yeah, I did.
Confused it with
Thanks to
Bloomberg,
Buttigieg.
Biden.
Yeah, thanks to. I hope a guy with the letter B for their last name wins. Anyway, thanks to Buttigieg and Klobuchar stealing all that thunder, they've simultaneously put themselves on a plateau they're never going to be able to keep rising at, and they've knocked out all the steam out of Biden before Bloomberg comes in
Right.
with the Super
But-
Tuesday. But I want to
Yeah,
pretty
go
quickly
ahead.
finish this up. It's very obviously this is all very straightforward. Everyone should get this right away. Sanders and Tom Steyer have put in a lot of legwork, more organization in these communities, and Buttigieg and Klobuchar will have to figure out a way to harness the momentum out of Iowa and New Hampshire. Spoiler: they can't, they won't, to make up for lost time. So that's where we're at. First is third is fifth. Cats are dogs, et cetera, et cetera. And they're
Up
going
is down, down is up.
But as we know, when this caucus happens, which Buttigieg and Klobuchar are participating in, they will definitely be taking a strong second and third.
Okay, so here's something to think, because I'm glad that you mentioned that, Buttigieg and Klobuchar put themselves on this platform, and now everyone sees them, and, it's going to plateau out. But I think it's not only plateau out, I think it's going to fall, because, again, now they're in the spotlight, and people, voters, you guys, can now look into their voting record. That's right, because you have the internet at your fingertips. At any point in time, you could see where they stand on the issues. In fact, it'd be really questionable if people looked into, Amy Klobuchar's record as a prosecutor. That's something to really look into. Or look at, Mayor Pete Buttigieg's time as mayor of South Bend, Indiana. South Bend, Indiana, an area where especially the African-American communities are being gentrified and people are now homeless because the mayor and his administration failed to really help the working class in that community. A lot of police cover-ups and police brutality that's not being heard of. And in fact, also, remember, during his time as mayor, Pete Buttigieg, the only way you can actually get a sit-down meeting with him is if you went through the donors first and the lobby groups first before they gave you the green light to actually speak to Pete Buttigieg, because they want to know what you're going to talk to him about. Because remember, Pete Buttigieg listens to his donors. And you think during that entire time Pete Buttigieg cared about the working class, especially the African-American community that was in South Bend, Indiana? Probably not. Do you think he cared about, the police cover-ups and the police brutality that was happening as his time as South Bend mayor? Probably not. But it's something that maybe all of you and all of us should look into now because, Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg could be struggling, especially when it comes down to Nevada, South Carolina, and then going into Super Tuesday. This election cycle is only getting started, but we got to kick this thing into overdrive because if we want Bernie Sanders to win a nomination, we have to turn out to vote. Paul.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of dancing around. I think that point of like they're going to try to have a contested convention here. Yeah. Maybe Pete had a little surge and then it's gone, and then Amy had a little surge and guess what? It's gone too. And then maybe after everyone realizes that Biden never had a firewall in South Carolina, then Super Tuesday can roll around and Bloomberg can have his little surge because he spent all of his money in Super Tuesday states and. Oh yeah, he's going to buy his election. But at the end of the day, it's a race to the majority / a decisive plurality.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's one final note on that. This is why this is partly why I'm not as worried about that outcome. Although I am worried about it, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. I just think that maybe I feel like I have a 10 or 15% less chance of perception-wise of it happening. And that is that if Biden's going to drop out now. He's already on track to be knocked out. Elizabeth Warren already on track to be knocked out. I expect that that'll also apply to Buttigieg and Klobuchar. Thank you very much. And Steyer's
such a memorable candidate.
Yeah. Steyer's going to have something like that happen. And even if he doesn't, it kind of doesn't matter when he's in the race compared to Bloomberg. So my point is, if you narrow the field down and eventually we get to a point, because the first 4 states, if we knock out, again, we've gone from 20 people to 8 already. And if that gets knocked down to 2 or 3 by the time we hit Super Tuesday, that's really good for Sanders. If you have 2 establishment people splitting the vote, Sanders might get a majority in a lot of states right away. And again, if we get to a point where it's Sanders versus Bloomberg, that's perhaps the most ideal situation. The news was complaining that, hey, Sanders used to get 60% when it was just Hillary, and now he's fighting 8 people, and he's now down to 30%. He must not be relevant anymore. Well, that will reverse itself when we get to him versus Bloomberg.
What a stupid argument that is. We haven't even touched on that argument.
Yeah,
but
Tom
they literally are making
Steyer
that.
has more name recognition than Sanders.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know.
if you add up these other candidates, they have more votes, right? But they're not all running as one candidate.
If you take this 30% and put it in here, Sanders is doing even worse.
And see, that's where I look at.
I
Tom
can
Steyer
identify
as
which
a
number is
candidate.
larger
it
than
just
the
makes
other.
no sense, because the thing is, granted, Tom Steyer was coming to Bernie Sanders' defense at least during the last election, but that's why you got to keep these guys at arm's length because Tom Steyer does not have the same name recognition as Bernie Sanders or any of the
Remember,
other
it's
candidates.
second, so it's first.